Welcome to Philly with John Marks on PHLY. It's always presented by Bet Parks and Central City Toyota. Eagles, very quickly, the line has corrected itself. Opened to 3.5-point favorites against the Packers next Sunday in the wild card round. Quickly up to minus 4.5. I don't know if this happened this morning or it happened last night, but I looked this morning. I'm like, all right. So the line has jumped a full point. So apparently some heavy Eagles money coming in early, and the lines maker said, we better bump that up to try to get people to stop betting on the Eagles. We'll see where that goes. But it felt like a low line, which was concerning. But anyway, we'll get into all that. We have a lot of time to get to all that. First of all, I want to start here because the Eagles finished the season after yesterday's win with 14 wins, 14-3. And take a step back and take a step out of Philly right now, because I think we're kind of realizing that we have a really good team and a really good organization. The Eagles won 14 games in a season. And I know there's 17 now. But that's unbelievable. As somebody that grew up with the end of Marion Campbell is really, like, I remember Dick Vermeil, but the end of Marion Campbell, which was short, in the Buddy Ryan, which was fun, but they had a ton of talent. Buddy didn't even win a playoff game. Into the 90s where they lost all the talent, but they still had some. But again, never achieved any type of playoff success. And they were my formidable years as an Eagle fan. And then in the Andy Reid, and Andy had a really nice run. Oh, but like Andy, they're 14-3, right? Am I right with this? They won 14 games. I mean, think about that. So take a step out and just kind of soak it in, because the Eagles, and they're only the number 2 seed, but the Eagles won 14 games in a regular season, including yesterday's win over the Giants, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. You know why? Because I probably watched on the second half, especially. I watched mostly Red Zone. But like Tanner McKee's fine. Anybody out there that's going to go, man, he's the best passer on the team or whatever, stop. All right, let's see what Tanner McKee looks like when you have defenses that are trying to put pressure on him and everything else. And he did look good yesterday. It's already an excellent draft pick by Howie Roseman. He looked better than a functional backup. He looked good yesterday. I don't care. There were backups that were playing. Dallas Goedert got out there for a little bit. He looked really good. But my biggest takeaway from the game yesterday was it was a clear tank job by the New York Giants. Brian Daboll, if you read between the lines, the owner of the Giants, John Mara, had come out in recent weeks and more or less said, I'm not making major changes. And then the Giants beat the Colts. And it's a lot of reasons, if you're Giants ownership, to not get rid of the head coach. Daniel Jones was the quarterback. They let Saquon Barkley go. Right? Like, is it really Brian Daboll's fault? He just was coach of the year 2 years ago. So they said, hey, we're going to give him another year. We're going to give the GM another year. So you give them a kind of a heads up going into the game. They know if they're on the chopping block or not. And apparently they were told that they weren't. So you know what you do if you're the head coach? You do what's right for the organization. And it's not to win that game yesterday. They win yesterday. They're picking 8th, maybe, something like that. With the loss, now they're picking 3rd, because it was a weird day in the NFL, a really weird day in the NFL yesterday, and not in a good way. A bad day, bad games, bad. So the Giants clearly did not want to win that game. That was a tankathon, even with having Drew Lock and everything. Like, you could just tell there was zero urgency in trying to win that game, especially with some of Daboll's early decisions. Which, by the way, fine with me. I'm glad the Eagles won yesterday. Get to that 14 win. Like, the Giants picking 3rd rather than 8. Like, I don't care about that. The Giants are bottom feeders. I was rooting for them not to get the number 1 pick because it made me feel good. But ultimately, if they pick 3rd or 8th, I don't care. They're going to get a better play at 3rd. Maybe they even get one of these bad quarterbacks and they'll screw themselves even further, the New York Giants. But I'm glad the Eagles won the game. Boom, get 14 wins, head into the wild card round. The Packers. Here's one of the weird things that I noticed yesterday. I think that everybody saw. It didn't seem like any of these teams really wanted to win, that were already in the playoffs. The Commanders and the Packers, more or less fighting for seeding. You could play the Eagles, or you can play, who am I missing here? Because the Rams now, because the Bucks are the 3 seed, they're the 4 seed. So more or less the loser, the Commanders or the Eagles, the Commanders or the Packers, we're going to have to play the Eagles. So the Commanders sit Jalen Daniels. They almost lost to the Cowboys. And Jordan Love hit his funny bone. So they put Malik Willis out there. Jordan Love could have came back. They ended up losing the game. He could have came back in there. He was warming up when Willis got hurt. It hit his funny bone. So like they didn't want to win. It was weird. It was really, really weird yesterday. Like the Rams didn't even try. We talked about this on Friday. The Rams didn't play their starters. So now they're going to play the Vikings instead of being who they would have played, which is, and I'm totally blanking right now. I'm trying to bring up the schedule here. But it was weird. The Bills, they lost intentionally. They were tanking in the second half because they wanted the Patriots to lose the draft pick. And they did. And Gerard Mayo probably sensed he was going to get fired, so he's out there with Joe Milton was doing backflips. You think about this if this happened in Philadelphia. You have the number 1 overall pick, and you've had a crappy season. I think they lost 7 straight games, and you're unhappy. This organization sucks. And they bring in their rookie 5th or 6th round draft pick, and they sit Derek May down. Everybody thinks that's gonna help. Joe Milton's out there running around like a maniac, and he's doing backflips after scoring touchdowns. And the Patriots win. I was following some of that game. The Bills were trying to lose that game. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Patriots Eagles 4:30 on Sunday. Washington Tampa Bay 8 o'clock on Sunday, and then Minnesota and the Rams. So the Rams, if they would have played for it, they could have been playing to not face Minnesota because they're playing the top wild card, which was either going to be the Lions or Minnesota. And then you have Washington, who is now draws Tampa Bay, which Tampa Bay's a good team. They almost lost yesterday. How'd they almost lose yesterday? It was crazy. And then how about, oh man, I can't wait. This is what Sunday Night Football. This is like the biggest prize ever. The Lions and the Vikings for the top seed. Oh, what a battle. What a bad game. Sam Darnold looked like the old Sam Darnold, which I guess is fine. But I've heard a lot of people over the last week talking about how he's a top 5 quarterback, and this is the guy that was drafted 3rd overall, and all it took was a good organization. Maybe some of that's true. Man, he looked like crap. There was one drive in the first half where it was after the turnover by Detroit. They had the ball inside the 5, and he missed on a couple of throws. It was a bad sequence of play calling, in my opinion, anyway. But he very much looked like the old Sam Darnold that we used to know and love. All right, so Eagles and I agree with Vince. The Vikings aren't winning squat. They may lose to the Rams. Maybe the Rams knew what they were doing in this scenario. Maybe Sean McVay really is Kaiser Soze. But I think that's Nick Sirianni. The friggin' Giants tanked the game. Everybody realizes that, right? The best move that Brian Daboll's made in 2 years was losing that game yesterday. Congratulations to the New York Giants. You figured out a way to lose on purpose. You weren't trying to do it all season. You were trying to win all season. Good job. Patriots cost themselves the number 1 overall pick. So they fired Gerard Mayo. Like, he was barely off the field and he was fired. So he knew it was coming. And he screwed him. Oh, it was a thing of beauty. Maybe Tyreek Hill wants out of Miami. A lot happened yesterday. Let's bring in Tyler Zuley for his impressions after the Eagles and the Mormon Missile. Who would have thought the Mormon Missile guiding the Eagles to the big victory over the New York Giants? Where were you for the 14th win of the season, Tyler Zuley? Good morning.
On the chase of my couch is where I was, and I'll remember it fondly till the day that I can't remember football anymore. Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought McKee was good. I thought it was an impressive showing from a group of majority of the reserves and the backups. What I garner from this is twofold. One, you brought it up, is that there's a pretty clear indication the Giants didn't really care too much about this game. They went, wait, what did we just do against the Colts? Why did we do that? And then I think course corrected a little bit. Drew Lock threw the ball almost 30 times and threw for less than 200 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson had 10 catches for 43 yards. His long was 9 on the day. So, like, if you have him in PPR format, that's great. But otherwise, it's kind of a wasted day. So that was my first takeaway from the Giants. My second takeaway from the Eagles is that the Eagles' depth is extremely impressive. And again, it had a preseason feel to it. It wasn't this like high flying, let's open up the playbook type of game. But I thought that I thought the offensive line depth was good for the most part. You ran out five. Actually, I think it was 6 guys because a couple of Tyler Steen started the game. You're looking at guys like Jahan Dotson getting some reps and Johnny Wilson getting some reps and Will Shipley got some reps and the defense was a bunch of the young guys. It was, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that like it was this amazing football game, but I think from a standpoint of getting your depth some reps and showing that you are one of the deeper teams in football, it does feel good to know that they played a fairly complete game as a group of second and third unit players.
Yeah, awesome. Oren Burks had 17 tackles. Trot Jr. out there yesterday with 11 tackles. And Tiki was talking about it. He was having flashbacks to that 54, hammering him in his final season.
Yeah, well, they brought it up. They said he was tackled 51 times in his career by Jeremiah Trotter. He only played twice a year. 51 tackles.
Yeah, it's a lot. Those, and it's why, like, you look at the Giants as being the Eagles' rival because your years of Dallas was never a factor, which they haven't been in a long time. More on that coming up in a little bit. But the Giants and those good Giants teams.
There wasn't a whole lot of vitriol growing up for Quincy Carter and Drew Hutchinson and
Chad Hutchinson and
Chad
Drew,
Hutchinson. Sorry,
Drew, the baseball player,
Drew Hansen.
Yeah, Drew Hansen.
The 50-year-old like walking dead Vinny Testaverde. Like there wasn't a whole lot of good Cowboys teams in my youth until Tony Romo came along. So to me, it always felt like it was the Giants first.
All right, so let's get to the headlines because I have so much today. There's so much NFL stuff to talk about today, but I have so much today. So let's get to some headlines here on a Monday morning, Tyler.
Yeah, let's do it. Of course, our headlines are brought to us by our friends over at Glad Hair Restoration. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, head on over to gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. Well, you kind of went over a lot of the games last night. We will start with the Sunday night game for those that maybe are the early morning crew and the early risers that didn't get a chance to watch it last night. John, I could not have been more wrong on this game if I tried. I thought Minnesota's run defense was going to be a big factor. It wasn't. They gave up 139 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns to Jahmyr Gibbs. And Jared Goff was okay, ready, a high completion percentage, but he only threw for 231,
2
pair of interceptions. But the Lions were just methodical and were up 17-9 heading into the fourth quarter, scored the only 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. As you mentioned, Sam Darnold looked kind of human in this one again. 18 of 41, 166. Lions win the NFC North in going away fashion, and the Minnesota Vikings will be the highest win total wild card team in the history of the NFL.
It's unbelievable. And you know what? I would not be surprised if they lost to the Rams. They had a lot, and I don't necessarily think they're fluky, but we in recent weeks talked a lot about how great their defense was, and man, their offense couldn't do anything last night. And if you're not controlling the ball, the Lions are, like you said, methodical. They can beat you in so many ways. They're really good. A couple things just in general, because it was a non-competitive game last night. When the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs with the 12th overall pick, I, like many, were like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What a reach. He was looked at as like a late first, early second. And then afterwards, you saw some reporting saying, nah, he was going to get drafted a lot earlier than people realized. The kid's a stud. He is a game changer.
Their whole first round that year was perplexing at the time because it was Jahmyr Gibbs, which was, again, as you brought up, was kind of an interesting selection. Now we know, like, wow, the kid's unbelievable. The kid just, like, great pass catcher. He's becoming a better pass blocker. He's incredible out of the backfield. And they've done a nice job of pairing he and David Montgomery. He's a lead back. You don't need David Montgomery if you don't want David Montgomery anymore. And then the second pick, I believe, was Jack Campbell with the 18th pick. Now, his 2023, his rookie year, he had almost 100 tackles, and he only started 12 games that season.
And that was scrutinized big time as well.
Yeah, I was hugely scrutinizing that pick because I was like, he's a nice middle linebacker, but I was like, does he have the
third round pick? Yeah.
Like, does he have the physical attributes to be a side to side, like horizontal linebacker, like getting to the sideline and things like that? He's been excellent. He was excellent at least last year too. It ended up being a good first round for the Lions, who just they've put together a really good roster. And
they traded up for Jameson Williams, and it's been mixed results, but this year he showed his real potential. Jared Goff was they actually got an extra first-round draft pick just to take him.
Yeah.
You think about how this team's constructed. And then Dan Campbell, when they hired Dan Campbell, he was talking about biting kneecaps. Everybody's laughing at him. And look at the friggin' team they've built up there. So the Eagles are going to have their hands full if they can get to the NFC Championship game, and if the Lions can as well. So.
Yeah, and if you remember, too, the story that came out a couple of weeks ago about Jared Goff went in Dan Campbell's office the first year together. They were like 9-1 or something like that. He went in thinking he was going to get benched, and he walked out, and I think the word they used was like rejuvenated or refreshed or whatever it was. I think he walked in thinking, yeah, this is it for me. I'm cooked. Dan Campbell gave him the vote of confidence. They end up winning a couple of games that year. They win 9 the following year. They just missed the playoffs. And then last year, of course, was the big year for them. And then they've parlayed that into a 1 seed and the bye in the first round in the NFC East this year.
What else do we have here, Tyler?
Yeah, so we'll go. You kind of talked about most of the NFL, so we'll just really quickly talk about what the NFL draft order is set, because it is set for all of the teams that did not make the playoffs. The Tennessee Titans end up with the number 1 overall pick due to strength of schedule. They were 3-14. The Browns were 3-14. The Giants were 3-14, but the strength of schedule for the Titans was 5-22, which was the worst of the 3-4 teams. So the Titans, the Browns, the Giants will have the first 3 picks. New England and Jacksonville and the Raiders were all 4-13. They'll pick 4, 5, and 6. Rounding out the top 10, the Jets at 7, the Panthers at 8, the Saints at 9, and the Chicago Bears, who were once 4-2, can't even lose right apparently, because they also win in the final week of the year after losing 10 consecutive games. And their draft pick ends up falling. Like I said, they're picking 10th. They could have picked as low as 6th, but could have picked as high as 4th. Now, I think strength of schedule would have come into play. They would have lost that because they've played so many good teams in the NFC North just by themselves. But they could have picked 6th. They're now picking 10th.
Yeah, no, I like, if you're a Bear fan, I wouldn't worry about that because they did beat the Packers. And this is the team now that you're looking less about tanking because you have your quarterback. You still don't want to screw yourself in the draft. I think they also have 2 second-round draft picks. They have Carolina's second-round pick in this upcoming draft coming up. So they'll have 2 top 10 second-round draft picks for the Bears. So there you go.
All right, couple quick notes from over the weekend. The Sixers trounced the Brooklyn Nets on Saturday to snap a short 2-game losing streak. They win 123-94 over Brooklyn. This one was pretty much wire to wire, John. It was 29-19 after the first. They were up huge at the end of the second, continue to pile on. They win this game by almost 30. Joel Embiid didn't have to play for a majority of the fourth quarter. He only ended up playing 29 minutes, had 12 boards, 28 points, 18 for Maxey, 17 for George, and for Caleb Martin. They win this one. And you know what's funny, John? We talked about the Kings game and the Warriors game, and 2 different games. The Kings game was more frustrating to me than the Warriors game, but they end up leaving this 6-game road trip 4-2. They win their first 3. They drop 2 in Sacramento and Golden State. They beat Brooklyn to end the road trip at 4-2. And, again, far from the goal of what their expectations were, but they continue to kind of chop off wins in a little bit more like bunches now. They're still not a good team in terms of standings, but they're playing some better basketball.
I don't think this team is any different than previous 76er teams that are good. They can beat almost anybody in the regular season. And then once you get to a 7-game series, you just that's where you're spinning your wheels come second round. I don't expect anything different this year, but I guess we'll see. Anything else on the Flyers or anything else?
Yeah, Flyers lose last night 3-2 in overtime. They tied the game at 2 in the second period. Morgan Riley pots the game winner for the Maple Leafs, who are now 26-13-2, including a 17-7 record at home. The Flyers fall for the second consecutive game. Remember, they lost to Vegas earlier in the week. They're now 17-18-5 on the regular season. Goals from Tyson Forster and Scott Lawton in this one were not enough to win this one. Ivan Fedotov was decent, 22 saves on 25 shots. He ended up with an 88 save percentage, but I think his play was actually a little bit better than the numbers will tell you. But again, this goalie carousel for the Flyers seemingly has no end. There is no you're not getting off the ride anytime soon with the 3 goalies.
No, it's like having two quarterbacks in the NFL. It's not good. Coming up, as we mentioned, a ton going on in the NFL, including Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. Oh, boy. Jerry's a real beaut. What did he do yesterday? We'll talk about it coming up. Also, Eagles and Packers. We'll talk about the line coming up as well, but very interesting. An early look at what we think about the game that's coming up next Sunday. Philly with John Marks. Back in 2-2. All right, so let's go to the BetParx app. As I looked right before we went on the air, Eagles were -4.5. How about that line's up to 5, 1.5? It's sometimes the odds makers are like, all right, we're going to set something, and based on the amount of money that's coming in, they're like, whoa, let's slow this down. Well, it hasn't slowed it down yet. Eagles are now 5-point favorites. You can get that right now over on the BetParx app. Let's look at some of these early games here. Chargers, 3-point favorites at Houston. That's the first Saturday game. Steelers at Ravens, as expected, a big Ravens line, -9.5 over the Steelers. That's interesting. Bills are 8.5-point favorites at Denver. As I mentioned, the Eagles -5 over the Packers. Bucks and Commanders, the Bucks just 3-point favorites. A virtual coin flip, if that was on a neutral field. And then Minnesota, 2.5-point favorites at the Rams. So their Rams are at home, but that's still a not so confident line in the Vikings, but I guess a little bit. So listen, that's the BetParx app. You can get that right now on the BetParx app, but also their headline entertainment that they have is amazing. The Excite Center, which is where they have Larry the Cable Guy, May 16th. Ron White, a second show has been added March 20th. Country artist Cole Swindell. So you have comedians. You have great musical acts. Shaggy's coming up in his reggae sounds. That's coming up in less than 2 weeks now, January 18th. Actor Richard Kind from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains. Magician Michael Carbonaro. Man, enjoy dinner and drinks beforehand. Liberty Bell Gastropub. You'll get one of the best burgers you've ever had. Wings, etc. Parks Grill Steakhouse, amazing high-end steakhouse. The Bamboo Noodle House. I've been to all three. They're exceptional. Get drinks. Go have fun. Or just go have dinner. Parks.com. Buy tickets for all shows. Parks Casino. This is how you win. You must be 21. Gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, I was talking to my people over at Glad Hair Restoration by Morgan Stern Medical. The best hair business in the entire country. Hair restoration. If maybe you don't want to have the hair restoration procedure that I had, they're not trying to sell you. It's just not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, right? You're losing your hair. You're unsure what you want to do. You know that you want to stop your hair from thinning and balding, right? So that's why you contact Glad Hair Restoration, because they'll go over your options and what they think. They're actually an advocate for you, right? They realize that from the first phone call that you make until when the last time you're going to talk to them, which is whenever, that they want to give you the best advice. And one-on-one consultation, it's free, it's complimentary, and they'll kind of pinpoint it and be like, all right, you can even do it virtually. You can take pictures. This is what one of our last viewers contacted me. I handed them off to the hair team. They took some pictures. So they want to know what they're working with. All right, here's what I think. Here's the initial thoughts of it. So maybe it's hair restoration. Maybe it's laser light therapy or non-invasive treatments, vitamin supplementation, PRP and stem cell restoration, which I get done every year as well. If you're worried about your hair and you want to stop it, you don't want to shave your head, which you can do. It's a good look for a lot of people. You can call Glatt Hair Restoration, 610-980-4000, 610-980-4000, or Glatt Hair, G-L-A-T Hair, MCTR.com. All right, there we go. We're back. And it's been a little bit longer than 2 and 2, as Chuck Woolery once said, but still, we're back. All right, so, and Tyler, cue up the Jerry Jones thing here. So, when I heard that Trey Lance was going to be getting the start yesterday for the Cowboys, it was like, all right, like it makes sense. End of the season, they don't really care about the game. Gets a chance to put Trey Lance out there and see what he's got, let him run around, and he probably doesn't play well, and they end up losing the game even easier. Meanwhile, it's a pretty competitive game. And it looked like there for a while the Commanders were going to lose it because Marcus Mariota was running around and throwing the ball all over the place. Commanders ended up winning. I didn't realize, because I wasn't watching that game. Like, I was just coming up on Red Zone, and I wasn't really paying a lot of attention online yesterday. I didn't realize that Cooper Rush, the starting quarterback after Dak Prescott goes down, had big-time incentives tied to the game. So Cooper Rush would earn $500,000 incentives if he played 55% of the snaps in 2024. Entering yesterday, he played 52.5% of the snaps. So he needed about 65 offensive snaps to clinch the full 500,000. They had 55 snaps on Sunday. So if he would have started, he would have earned 250,000 more in incentives. Rush settled for 250. So he already had $250,000 in incentives for playing 45% of the snaps. He gets an extra 250 if he starts and he plays. So like naturally the reaction is, well, holy crap. That's really crappy. I have another word for it, to do to a guy that, like, look, Cooper Rush is going to be fine because he's an NFL quarterback, even if he's not a starter. He's going to make a lot of money. Even if he didn't make a lot of money, he can go coach or do clinics or things like that. Like, geez, I wish I could be Cooper Rush, right? But still, that'd be a nice bonus. I mean, the spirit of the contract is if you play these amount of snaps because you have to play, these are the bonuses. And to not play him yesterday, on purpose or not, really looks bad. So let's get to Jerry Jones here. After the game, Jerry Jones, he spoke to the media in this forum. I think it was for like 16 minutes. I saw some of the hosts down in Dallas were commenting on what Big Jerry was saying, because he's talking about Mike McCarthy, who he has let hang out to dry, their head coach, for, I mean, how long now? The entire season since the preseason. And now Jerry's playing the, oh, what? Who said that I have to fire Mike McCarthy? So he's playing this thing out again, just like he did with CeeDee Lamb, just like he did with Dak Prescott, just like he's going to do with Micah Parsons. Like it's a reality show. You're not on Hard Knocks anymore, Jer. Just get on Hard Knocks if you want this to be an actual reality, because it is a reality show. But here's Jerry Jones trying to explain after the game Cooper Rush and the incentives and all that kind of stuff. If we have,
how much did Cooper Rush's contract incentive play into him not playing today? If he played 55,
I didn't even know about it until I read about it. So nothing at all. Those incentives are in there for the team, and we put them in there so that if someone is, in his case, as a backup quarterback, has to play, they've got the financial incentives, but they're usually put in there because of people representing him, and they should be. So he did really earn some pretty serious incentives this year.
Also, he did earn some pretty serious incentives because he got the 250. He didn't get the other 250. So I believe the Cowboys, if they wanted to, they could pay him the 250. They could give him that incentive, because here's the reality. There's nothing wrong with them playing Trey Lance yesterday. And I don't know if Jerry, he kind of had the bleep-eating grin on his face when he was saying it, so I don't believe him. But he said he didn't know about it until he read about it. When did you read about it? Were you reading about it during the game? Did your son wipe off your iPhone and hand you a tweet from somebody? Like, come on. You didn't know about it? You're supposed to be the GM. And he also said he's not giving up the being the GM of the team, which is hilarious and awesome. But isn't the right thing to do in that situation, and is to come out and say, we knew that he had these incentives. We wanted to see what Trey Lance looked like. So it was the last game of the season, and I thought Trey played great, and I was really happy to see Trey. Isn't the right thing to do if you're a billionaire owner with the most valuable franchise in the world, more than any European soccer franchise, more than the Yankees, more than anybody in the world? You throw the 250 bone and you say that you're going to do that. You say, if Cooper would have played and he earned the right to play, he would have played, he would have earned these extra incentives. We're going to go ahead and give that to him. Isn't that the right thing to do? Oh, Jer, you keep being Jer. Oh, man. You keep being Jer.
And the funny thing is, too, like you look in the league, across the league, we talked about it on Friday, all the incentive laden, things, like guys that are playing for, like, and that's why, like, I think bettors have gotten a hold of these incentives now. And they're like, oh, I'm betting, this player.
The coaches are going to try to get their players more money in every instance.
And that's always going to be the case. And you look across the league and you see Jerry Jones and the Cowboys not play Cooper Rush. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay, who owes Mike Evans substantially more money for his contributions, 1,000 yards, his catch number, his touchdown number, all that. Went out and ran another play for him
To
so
get
he
it.
could get the bonus, and he made $3 million off of that. And listen, like you said, if you want to do it in the best thing for your franchise, the best thing for your franchise is Cooper Rush is not going to play because we feel like Cooper Rush gives us a better chance to win. And what do we want to do? We want the better draft pick. So what we're going to do is we're going to play Trey Lance, and if we win the game, well, it's unfortunate. But if we lose the game like we expect, we get the better draft pick, and Cooper Rush is getting a check written to him for $250,000. Because if we needed this game, he would have played, right? And this guy fulfilled his role. Like, he stunk his first couple starts, like outright stunk. You remember that first Eagles game, how bad he was?
Yep.
And then he progressively got better and better and better up until the last week's Eagles game, where he was, again, not very good. But he had multiple weeks of playing some good football, beat Tampa Bay, was hanging in there against some better teams. And I think it's a guy who earned his incentive rights. And I think it would be really, really bad. It's really bad, like people-to-people business. I understand it.
It looks bad, and everybody in that locker room knows it looks bad.
Looks really bad.
Everybody does. Everybody in the NFL knows it looks bad. So, like he's definitely the backup quarterback, right? Like he's their number 2 going forward. Who knows what's going to happen with Trey Lance or whatever? Trey Lance looked pretty good yesterday, running around, I guess. But yeah, it's terrible. It's a bad look. Even if they were doing, because I think that was actually the right move, is to play Trey Lance and try to lose that game.
Hey, trying to lose the game, you want the draft pick. Your team wasn't very good this year. But the thing is with them, they have some really good players on their roster, right? Now, granted, the Micah Parsons situation is going to come to a head eventually. You've already signed CeeDee Lamb, and you're kind of cap hamstrung because of how much money you paid Dak Prescott. But they were a bad team with good players. They're not a bad team that just stinks and they need to be in this like enormous rebuild. Like we expected Dallas to be competitive this year, and they weren't, primarily because they dug themselves an early hole and Dak got hurt, right? So it was a lot of things that happened at once. Dallas is closer to competing than they are to like blowing the whole thing up.
Absolutely.
So to me, you want to add an impact player, and I don't know what position they end up going with. Do they bolster their offensive line? Do they bring in
running back? The kid from Boise for sure.
You know, but like they're going to have their opportunity now at, what are they picking? 12th, I believe they're selecting. As opposed to if they win that game, they could be 16, 17, 18 in that range.
Well, I mean, the Rico Suave dude, he ended up having 1,000 yards.
Yeah, Dalton was good at the end of the year. He struggled.
Yards.
He really struggled in the beginning of the year, but he kind of came to at the end. Yeah, so like
they were also giving Zeke a lot of the carries, so they made him the quasi starter. So
yeah, there were 4 teams that finished 8 and 9, and I don't know what Dallas's strength of schedule numbers would have been amongst them, but they could have picked as low as 16th, and instead they're picking 12th. I mean, 4 picks at the beginning of the draft is substantial.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tyreek Hill wants to be traded from Miami, and there were stories after the game. McDaniel had said that he was just told that like Hill wasn't won the round. So there's talk that Tyreek Hill wouldn't go back in the game. It looks, and again, that's a report. I haven't really seen anything following up on that. The Jags have fired Doug Peterson. So what used to be called Black Monday, Doug Peterson has been fired by the Jags. No real surprise there. They are keeping their GM, Trent Baalke. Gerard Mayo gets rewarded with a win yesterday by being fired. It was going to happen. I think it got announced like 80 minutes after the game. If you were paying attention, and I listened to a show on Boston Sports Radio, so I follow the kind of the media landscape in Boston. It had gained some steam in the last week that Mayo's job could be in jeopardy, but it wasn't until Mike Vrabel, who's in the Patriot Hall of Fame, he interviewed with the Jets the day on Saturday, and that's all the Patriots needed because he's going to be their next head coach. So he leveraged his position. There's no way that they were letting the Jets hire Mike Vrabel, and I don't think Mike Vrabel would go there anyway. But still, he leveraged it, man. So I expect Vrabel to be the next head coach. But if you watch that game, man, you can harken back to, and it's in a lot of these different games, you can lose the game without it looking like you're trying to lose the game. Remember Tim Donaghy? He got away with fixing parts of the game for so long because these officials called fouls on whatever play they want to anyway. So Donaghy was able to control the game and the pace of the game and the over and the unders and things like that, or the point spread, very easily by making foul calls. And nobody knew it until he got greedy, and then word got out that this referee was fixing stuff. And that's the only reason he got caught. But it's the same thing like in the Bills game yesterday. The Bills were trying to lose that game. What are they like? Why wouldn't they try to win? Well, I mean, they take Trubisky out. They put in White. They're literally, they were trying to, the Patriots announcers in the fourth quarter were like, oh my God, the Bills are trying to let them win this game. They did. The Patriots cost themselves the first overall pick. But the Giants were trying to lose that game yesterday, as they should have been. At the end of the games, for teams, like you could tell at the end of the games, just like with Doug Peterson in that Washington game, he ended up getting fired afterwards. But he left Jalen Hurts in too long to where it looked like he was intentionally trying to lose the game. Because he was. Because that was the edict. But he also wanted to let Jalen play. And he couldn't figure out how to lose. These other teams, like, they've all found a way to lose yesterday. And the Patriots couldn't find a way to lose because they knew they were getting fired. They fired the offensive coordinator. They fired Gerard Mayo. Oh, man. It is unbelievable. Carson Wentz blows. Not that I was expecting him to come out and not that I was expecting him to come out and look like Carson Wentz 2017, but you forget how bad he was in Washington. In Washington, he didn't look like an NFL quarterback. He hasn't looked like an NFL quarterback since early on in his Colts, because he was pretty good that season with the Colts. At least early on he was, before he blew it late. God, he is bad. Broncos, they laid a whooping on the Chiefs. And I know the Chiefs they were sitting everybody. God, Carson Wentz sucks. God, he's just so bad. So that's the rest of it. Dolphins end up losing. What are the other headlines here in the NFL? Yeah, the Panthers are an interesting case because I think their head coach is Dave Canales. He's going to be a good coach, and the Panthers winning that game yesterday, beating the Falcons. You know, Falcons they realize the Bucs are down. I mean, they're scoreboard watching. They're seeing the Bucs are down, and Carolina's that was a back and forth game that went to overtime. So that was a good game. I was following that on Red Zone.
Yeah, Carolina is an interesting one because if they would have lost, they would have ended up picking sixth because their strength of schedule was better than the Raiders, but worse than Jacksonville. So they'd ended up moving up 2 picks in the draft, going from 8th to 6th. But you're right. I think they play hard for Dave Canales. Bryce Young has looked much better since coming back after being benched. Chuba Hubbard's legit. We know that. I know his season was cut short due to injury.
Miles Sanders with 2 touchdowns yesterday.
Yeah, he played well yesterday. I think. Listen, they've got a lot of holes to fill. They need defense. They need defense. Did I mention they need defense? They were the worst run defense in the NFL this year. It's not a surprise after kind of the purge that they took with their roster over the last couple of years. They need defensive help in a big way. I would not be stunned if they end up going on the defensive line in some capacity in this draft, but that's a team that I think will, even though they lose the draft pick, that's a rare instance.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That win is not like the worst thing in the world for them because they know they've got their coach. They seem to feel like they've got their quarterback still. Olu Fashanu has played well this year. I think they have their bookend tackles, so they're okay there. They're looking to bolster their defensive front. You can do that at 8 just as you can at 6, especially if the first 2 picks or 2 of the first 3 picks are quarterbacks like we expected to be, whether it's Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward.
Yeah, they're going to get a good player there.
You're really talking about, instead of picking 8th, you're really picking 6th amongst the non-quarterbacks because you don't need one, or you feel like you don't need one. So,
yep.
And my assumption would be Travis Hunter's probably the 3rd player off the board. So if you didn't feel like Travis Hunter was your guy, because you do have J.C. Horn, who's been really good. So now you're really picking, like, of defensive line players, you're picking fifth. It's a weird way to think about it. And
no, but it's true that the skill guys and Travis Hunter are gonna be the top picks, and then you're gonna have a couple edge rushers. So yeah, they'll definitely have some.
like Jonathan Harvey brings up a player I was thinking of, Mason Graham from Michigan, the interior defensive lineman, would make a ton of sense for the Panthers.
All right, so let's do this. We'll talk early about the Eagles Packers. It's the Sunday 4:30 game, and I mean it was a close game first time out there, but the Eagles have been much different at this point than they were in the first game of the season. However, Jalen Hurts hasn't played in a number of weeks. We'll talk about all that, and also yesterday came out a salacious lawsuit filed against Skip Bayless. We'll give you some of those details. It's wild. That's coming up. Don't go anywhere. Philly. John Marks. What's up, everybody? All right. So it's the New Year's resolution time, right? We're only on the 6th of January. And while I, for the most part, don't subscribe to actually being like, oh, well, here's my New Year's resolution. I think everybody in their head have something they want to accomplish, right? And for me, which would have went back, I actually think it's 3 years ago now. I had a shoulder that was the range of motion was bad. The pain was bad. I would sleep on it the wrong way. It was just in not constant 10 out of 10 pain. But what if you're in like 6 out of 10 with your pain? Your joints are aching. Your back is like 5 out of 10 pain, but you can't do the same stuff that you used to do. Your knees like a little bit hurt, but when you go jogging or you exercise, then it's an 8 out of 10 for a couple days, right? So you stop working out. You stop doing the things that you love. And this is when we talk about Rothman and Rothman Orthopedics, because literally I went to Rothman Orthopedics 3 years ago because of my shoulder. I had to stop. I would have to use tongs to reach the higher, and I'm not tall either. Insert joke. But to get the cereal at the top of my pantry for my kids, because I couldn't get my shoulder like above here. And it wasn't getting better. You hope it's going to get better. It'll get better. It wasn't. I went to Rothman Orthopedics, diagnosed by one of their great doctors with a frozen shoulder. But what's a frozen shoulder? They explained it to me. It's like the bursa, and because I'm diabetic and I have Barrett's and some other things that are going on. So it's like, well, this is definitely what you have. So I went to their physical therapy. I did PT for 6 weeks. I haven't felt any, like my shoulder's back to 100%. And this is 3 years. All right. So if you do have the bad shoulder, hip, ankle, whatever, from top to bottom, from start to finish, from diagnosis to discharge, they have something for you. X-rays, bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. So you go see the doc, boom, when you're done with physical therapy, top to bottom, Rothman Orthopedics. They specialize in you. Rothman Orthopedics, specialized in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and to make an appointment. There you go. You can tell that I legitimately, like, if you're in pain, don't waste any more time. Just do it. If I would have known it would take me 6 weeks to get better, I would have done it years before that. All right, Central City Toyota. You know what? I was just looking at my odometer in my car, and I'm approaching 60,000. I'm like 58 something. And I just got 4 new tires on the car, so I'm not ready to do it right now. But aren't you always really looking to upgrade your ride, right? And the electric cars, and Toyota has them, they interest me at this point. But if you're in the market for a new car, a certified Toyota, pre-owned, centralcitytoyota.com, you can see their full inventory, and you can see their sister dealership, Ardmore Toyota. Full inventory of both right there, centralcitytoyota.com. And that's why you go to him. My Uncle Jamie is the general manager of Central City Toyota. And he's 7-1 in his college football locks during the college football playoffs. He only had 1 loss, 7 wins. But he's been with the dealership for over 2 decades. Central City Toyota has been in the heart of University City on Chestnut Street for 55 years. It's a long time. You know why? Because they run a great business. They're a great dealership. So if you're looking to get a new ride, CentralCityToyota.com. If you're looking for parts and service, largest parts and service dealership in the entire city of Philadelphia. So if you work in Center City, perfect opportunity to schedule an appointment at CentralCityToyota.com. They'll come and grab your car. They'll come and take it back to the dealership, service it, drop it back off. You don't even know what happened. But you're not sitting in a dealership or an oil change spot on a Saturday for 3 hours. Get new tires, get service, get your car inspected. Again, centralcitytoyota.com for an appointment and to see everything they do, all their inventory. Or you can just walk into their dealership, kick open the door, or just push it open and say, hey, Uncle Jamie, I'm here. You can do that. centralcitytoyota.com. Hoo-ah. We are back. All right. Eagles-Packers.
John, you're saying don't drive your car through the front of the dealership like that crazy guy did in, was it Colorado or Montana or whatever it was?
I would not recommend doing that.
I would not do that.
If you have an issue with the dealership, you should walk in the door and say, hey, may I speak to the manager, please? Do not drive your car through. I wonder what ultimately happened to that guy.
I would assume he got arrested, right?
Yeah, he definitely got arrested. I mean, he could have clipped somebody with that car. He came flying in the dealership window. So Tyler, you're here. Packers. What do you think? I thought it was really odd that the Commanders and the Packers both didn't really seem to be playing the win yesterday. At least they weren't balls to the wall playing the win. I mean, but they were calling plays to try to win the game, but still they weren't playing their starting quarterback. Jordan Love got injured, but I feel like he could have came back in. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a good team, right? We've talked about plenty of times, like you're going to play good teams in the playoffs. Yeah. You know, and you brought up the line, and it was 3.5, and then it jumped to 4. What's it settled up? 5 now. I'm not surprised that it's jumped up. I think a lot of people jumped on the Eagles at 3.5. The Eagles are a better team than Green Bay. I believe that, but Green Bay's formula has been pretty rock solid this year for when they win games. Now, I will say this: they're 1-5 against the NFC North, which could tell you that they've. They lose to Detroit twice. They lose to Minnesota twice. It's 2 good teams, 2 teams that ended up winning a combined 29 games this year, including 4 against Green Bay. But their formula for success is pretty straightforward. It's a really, really good run defense, and it's a rushing offense that has been much, 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 much improved. And listen, Aaron Jones was excellent, but they've gotten even better with Josh Jacobs as the headliner, right? They're 5th in rushing yards this year, just shy of 2,500. They run for almost 5 yards a clip. They have 23 rushing touchdowns, which is good for 5th in the league as well. Explosive plays, they have 15 rushes of 20 yards or more. The funny thing is, John, they don't have the break off crazy big rushing play. They have 0 rushing yards of 40 yards or more, and their long this season is 38. So they're meticulous. They protect the ball. They've not asked Jordan Love to do a crazy amount of things. He hasn't thrown for more than 275 yards in the last 7 weeks, but he's also not thrown an interception or turned the ball over in the last 7 weeks. He hasn't thrown a pick.
They control the ball, like you said.
He hasn't thrown a pick since the last time they played Chicago, which was back on November 17th. He hasn't fumbled the football since they played Detroit, which was back on November 3rd. So they protect the ball. They run the rock well. They stop the run. This is a good Packers team. I don't expect the Eagles to come in here and roll the Packers, but I do believe that the Eagles are a better team than the Packers in this game. And I would expect them to win should Jalen Hurts be healthy.
Yeah, they better. That's for sure. Christian Watson, the wide receiver, he left the game. He was carted off yesterday. So while Jordan Love's going to be fine, I don't think Christian Watson plays based on what I saw. And I didn't see a diagnosis.
I would expect Jordan Love to play, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, I would be shocked if Jordan Love didn't play. Now, as far as the Eagles with their run defense, Jordan Davis played yesterday. He was the one guy that was out there that was like, wow, Jordan Davis is playing. So he was playing with the non-regulars. Man, they're going to need a huge game out of Jordan Davis because, you had said, I don't think you have to worry about a 90-yard run from Josh Jacobs. You got to worry about 7 yards, 8 yards. He had a rushing touchdown, I think, in 7 straight games or something like that. So, yeah, they definitely they control it. They're going to play off their play action. Love can make you pay. And then Jalen Hurts coming back he's still not cleared concussion protocol. So I would expect that early in the week that would happen. And then they kind of get ready for this game.
Yeah. 142 first downs on the ground this year for Green Bay. Only the Eagles, Ravens, Commanders, and Lions have more. it's kind of funny, like expectation wise, in terms of not turning the ball over. Love and Hurts have been similarly tasked to do things. Now, they're different quarterbacks, obviously, but they've been kind of similarly tasked to play mistake-free football, to be kind of that field general, and then Hurts has that extra ability to break off a big run or to score with his legs, while Jordan Love at times can like sling the ball down the field if he needs to. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts can't, but it's been kind of funny that these two offenses have been kind of similarly built in terms of how they succeed. Now, if you say roster construction, the Eagles wide receiver group is substantially better. To me, the Packers have a bunch of like 2s and 3s, which is not a bad thing, right? Dontavian Wicks has been good. Christian Watson prior to the injury is a good player. They've got a good group of like 2s and 3s. They don't have
1.
They don't have A.J. Brown, right?
Yeah.
In fact, they don't have Devontae Smith even. But I think that it's a team that is committed to run the ball. They're committed to playing mistake-free football, and they're committed to stopping the run. And the Eagles are a similarly built team with higher-end talent. And that's why, to me, if you have these two teams that are going to meet head-to-head and they're going to do similar things, I'm going to take the team with the better talent. And to me, the team with the better talent is the Eagles in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, they better win the game. God. All right. Well, there you go. Skip Bayless no longer works for FS1, but in a lawsuit from a former hairdresser or hairstylist that worked on the show, she's suing for a number of reasons. But the two headlines are that Skip was sexually harassing her and offered her $1.5 million to have sex with him, claiming he could change her life. Suit also claimed Bayless accused her of sleeping with Shannon Sharp. So think about this. Shannon Sharp and Skip already hate each other. And then, at least according to this lawsuit, Skip is lingering hugs and kisses on the cheek while putting his body up against her and pressing against her breasts. And she said she's not interested in him because she didn't date at work. But apparently Skip kept trying to develop a relationship with her. So, I mean, like when you read a lot of this, a lot of it's like, yeah, this totally makes sense. Like the fact that he's accusing her of sleeping with Shannon Sharp. But like, how does he offer like, why not $1 million? Why $1.5 million? Like, hey, please sleep with me. Here's $1.5 million, not $1 million. I don't know. A lot of it was weird. The other part of it is Joy Taylor, who, listen, I don't like to criticize people that do this job because you could very easily criticize me. I'll also be honest with what I think, but I don't go out of my way to kill. Like, for instance, Michelle Beadle has been stealing money for years. Every job she gets, other than the first one with Colin Cowherd, she gets fired because she's terrible and people don't like working with her. And she's made millions of dollars off of contracts that she never finishes because they whack her. I think she's talented, but like she's awful. I don't spend time saying it. But Joy Taylor, I watched her when she was on with Colin Cowherd. She was like the update guy. She's awful. Now she's beautiful, and maybe she's going off of the personality, and that's what's getting her. I always thought she was awful. Well, she keeps getting promoted. According to this lawsuit, she was not only messing around with Emmanuel Acho, but also some programming executive with FS1, and that was a part of her rapid advancement. So I guess part of the lawsuit was that you had to sleep with people at FS1 or at Fox Sports to advance, and she was unwilling to do it, and therefore she did not advance. I mean, I don't know what you advance to if you're a hairstylist, but still. I Googled her name, and like she worked for Fox for a number of years because she would put up a lot of pictures of on Instagram of the people, including Joy Taylor, that she styled. Skip also, she said, "Skip, stop it." And Skip, according to the lawsuit, said, "Aren't you Muslim? Doesn't your dad have 3 to 4 wives?" Because Skip's married. Skip, stop. You have a wife. It's unbelievable. Good old Skip. Yeah, I mean, this is Anthony's coming up live at 9:00. This is not an easy Eagles win on Sunday, but this is an Eagles win. They're more talented. They have more experience. Packers are a good team. This is not the year that you're going to be facing. The Eagles are going to be facing a far inferior team. Eagles are more talented. Eagles are the better team. It doesn't mean they can just step on the field on Sunday and they're going to win the game. If they come out flat, they're coming out at home. If they start off slow, everybody, I would say this. If you're going down to the game, don't get crazy early if it takes some time for them to start to get going on offense. Maybe they click right away and they put up some early points. This might be one of these slow, sluggish starts, being that the first team offenses have played together in a number of weeks. I don't think this is going to be I don't think this is an easy one, Tyler, but I feel good going into the game.
Yeah, you said this isn't the year that there's not a 7-9 division winner. There's not a 9 I should say, I guess 8 and 9 now, right? 17 games is like my old man yells at clouds, where I'm like, I'll get there eventually. I'll remember there's 17 games, but my brain is so ready to say 16 games. I feel like 8 and 9. There's no 8 and 9 division winner. Even the 9 and 8 playoff teams in the West, Denver has a legit defense. Now, Bo Nix has played much better than I anticipated. I was clearly wrong on the guy. But even the teams that are at the bottom of the AFC, they're a talented group. There's talented groups at least units within a roster. The NFC is the better conference, I believe, this year. And so you're thinking about Washington, you're thinking about Green Bay, you're thinking about Minnesota. And if you were ranking the teams in the NFC, those three teams, I think all three of them go above maybe at least one of the division winners and maybe two in terms of the Rams and the Bucks. But it's a group of 5 teams. Take the Eagles and the Lions at the top, and then the other 5 teams. It's a group of 5 teams who are all pretty good to very good. And they have different ways of going about it. We've talked about Washington. They're probably the poorest roster, but they've got the quarterback. They've got the quarterback who's been great all year, and skill position players like Brian Robinson, like Terry McLaurin. They can beat you in a multitude of ways, even if their roster construction 1 to 53 is not as good as the other teams. You think about Green Bay, they don't have a ton of elite playmakers on offense aside from their running back, but they do all the little things right. They play good defense, they're stout, they run the football well. So even these teams that are your wild card teams or your lesser teams, it's still a pretty good year in the NFC. You're going to have to beat a multitude of good teams if you want to make a deep run in the postseason.
All right, coming up, let's switch over to Ant. He is coming up. I got a couple days off coming up, so I think Jamie and Tyler are going to be handling things before I'm back later on in the week as we get ready for the Birds and the Packers. 4th and 26. I'm assuming it's going to be talked about a little bit coming up here over the next. A lot of videos out there.
Freddie Mitchell will be a guest on every sports talk radio show in the city.
Holy cow. Fred X. This will be a fun week. It will be. All right, everybody, appreciate you tuning in. All of our dieharders that listen every morning and watch every morning on YouTube. Our Mad Chatters, shout out to you. Thanks for joining us every day. Podcast listeners, we're available in the audio-only version of the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Philly with John Marks. And, of course, you can always watch on YouTube at your convenience. It's available whenever. So check us out. We'll be back tomorrow. Philly, John Marks be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Switch over to Ant. He's got his opinions on everything. See ya.
We all silly.